Last Thursday night I was listening to an audiobook, trying to sleep in the pitch darkness of my room, which has been so dark ever since I set up my altar there in an adjacent area that at night I can't even see my hand in front of my face. I was not asleep, just listening to the audiobook playing on my phone, when a loud voice, loud enough to be heard over my phone, started humming. The voice sounded like a middle-aged woman and was coming from the door to my bedroom. I did not move and just listened to it humming some tune. It was like something from a game on Steam called Phasmophobia, that a friend of mine and I play, where you play as paranormal investigators with a van filled with equipment used by real paranormal investigators, which you use in the game to go into haunted houses to work out what kind of entity is haunting the place. In the game, sometimes you hear a girl humming a tune, disturbingly moving past you as you hide when it is hunting you. Anyway, it is a really fun game, especially to play with friends, which I highly recommend. But it sounded like that, but with a middle-aged woman's voice rather than a child's. Despite all the weird stuff I've dealt with in my life, especially after years being involved in the occult, I have come to a point where I just ignore strange phenomena apathetically, in a form of inhibitory gnosis, to use a chaos magic term. For unless it is extreme, I am so used to strange phenomena, especially during the Abramelin, that it takes a lot to actually scare me. I have, however, had an experience so existentially annihilating in the past that it could have been straight out of a H.P. Lovecraft novel, to the point that I feel that I am almost a character in one of his stories. So I know how bad things can get involving the occult. This event took place in India, and I will talk about it in the future, but it was such a horror on a cosmic level to me that everything since has been pitiful. This was until last Thursday. I doubt I will ever experience anything as terrifying and terrible as what I experienced in India again during my lifetime. So I cannot compare anything to it. But for the first time in a very long time, I actually felt fear during a paranormal event or experience. The woman's voice was so subtly haunting, it was like a 90s Japanese horror film. I did not turn to look at her, but the room felt wrong. I remained apathetic and ignored it, as to not evoke any more of a fear response. But this entity was dark, cruel, and deeply malevolent. This is not an Abramelin update video. This is general. However, I will mention the Abramelin because I knew as soon as I started this operation that strange things would start to happen. And with the infamy of the operation, I was prepared for things to get pretty bad. I read a letter the other day in Magic Without Tears, which is a collection of Aleister Crowley's letters to his students. And he wrote to a student in his secret society, known as the AA, in which the student asked Crowley about physical manifestations of entities he has experienced. One thing I found interesting was when he referred to his Abramelin operation, which he did but failed to finish at Boleskine House on Loch Ness. I have not got a copy of Confessions, which is Crowley's autobiography, for it's out of print at the moment and I need to find a PDF of it to read one day, since I want to know more of what happened to him during the operation, in his words. But in the letter, he mentioned the infamous dancing demons biographers sometimes refer to that manifested during the ritual. However, Crowley's response was a very sobering account. They were semi-transparent, and to use Crowley's words, half in the astral world and half in the material, as he put it, with faces kind of floating around. He goes on to explain that in full manifestation they are not transparent. Anyway, I found that interesting, and I found that classification interesting with regards to these entities and experiences that people can get. Anyway, the other night I did not look at the door to see if I could see anything, not out of cowardice, but to protect myself. If I succumbed to fear, I would be an easy target for psychic attack or an entity to attach themselves to me. However, I was very surprised that I felt fear at all. It has been a long time since something paranormal managed to give me a fear response. It was the subtle, haunting nature of this that affected me. It hummed for a while as the audiobook played on my phone, then she finally stopped. By then I could not contain my curiosity anymore, so by that point I looked, but it was gone. I bring this up for one important reason. I don't believe in ghosts, at least not in the traditional sense. I believe that when you die, that some people remain as astral corpses that are able to stick around for only a week or two until they are reincarnated. This is a pretty common belief in some occult circles. I have not believed in ghosts sticking around any longer than that. I have seen an astral corpse before, and it was not haunting me. It was like it was trying to say goodbye. I have believed that other than the astral corpse phenomena, that ghosts are just demons pretending to be dead people to trick people that they are seeing their long dead grandmother, etc., etc. If the person has been dead for any longer than 2 weeks at most, they are not your loved one. My rigid belief that ghosts are just demons messing with people is one that is pretty common in American Bible Belt Christian communities, which my closest friend likes to point out to piss me off, since as much as I find the work of people like Ed and Lorraine Warren, to whom all those terrible Conjuring movies about them are made, to be dangerous and naive, I end up agreeing with them on this one point every time, as my friend likes to remind me. I get painfully frustrated at people like Ed and Lorraine Warren for pushing anti-occult, everything is Satanism, satanic panic Christian propaganda for decades, but I've always agreed with them on that one point. Until now. I have been too close-minded about ghosts. This experience felt different from the usual demonic/jinn type entity I have had dealt with during occult operations. I still believe that in almost all cases that ghosts are just demons doing what they do best. Lie, pretending to be ghosts, but I am not going to be fundamentally closed off to the idea anymore. There may be something to it. What I dealt with last week was probably just another entity trying to scare me and disrupt my Abramelin operation, but it was haunting, and to my surprise, as I said before, I actually found myself feeling fear. It is hard to explain these kinds of events properly, for they are always deeply personal, but I hope people find this interesting. Also, that friend of mine that I referred to and I were watching a very interesting Japanese horror film that I'm probably going to make a video on in the near future. It's called Nori, The Curse by Kojo Shiro Ishii. Sorry, I am butchering that name. And on Wednesday night, I just watched that film with my friend. Even though the film is more about Shinto demons than ghosts, it probably put the archetype back into my consciousness, which my friend reminded me last night, that because we've been watching these kind of films psychologically while doing this operation, that entities might manifest as these kind of archetypes propping up, which is a very good point. But yeah, I very much doubt what I dealt with was a ghost. I live in a very, very new apartment. It was built only a few years ago. I doubt anything has really happened here. But I don't want to be fundamentally closed off to the idea. And when I'm critical of Bible Belt Christianity, I am not critical against all Christians. I'm just critical of especially people like Ed and Lorraine Warren, for all of their anti-occult and satanic panic propaganda that everything's Satanism. And I'm sure people from that perspective would probably view me as a Satanist, which I'm not. Not that I care if people think I am. But yeah, I don't want to be like them, be fundamentally closed off. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. I was going to make it as a possible radio sort of podcast thing, which is why it was scripted, but I've been extremely busy and I just want to put it out there. So have a good day. Thanks.